This is about the title of Muhammad, for the related name of the mole on his shoulder blade. See Seal of Prophethood. For his actual signet ring, see Seal of Muhammad.Khatam. an-Nabiyyin, translated as Seal of the Prophets, is a title used in the Qur'an to designate the Prophet Muhammad. It is synonymous with the term Khātam al-Anbiyā, with the exception of some Muslims, most notably those of the Ahmadi sect. It is generally regarded to mean that Muhammad was the last of the prophets sent by God. Occurrence in the Quran. The title Khātam an-Nabiyyin or Khātam an-Nabiyyin, usually translated as Seal of the Prophets, is applied to Muhammad in verse 33 to 40 of the Quran. The popular Yusuf Ali translation reads, Muhammad is not the father of any of your men, but the messenger of Allah and the seal of the prophets, and Allah has full knowledge of all things. There is a difference among the schools of Quranic recitation regarding the reading of the word in verse 33 to 40. It can be read as either Khātam. Of the 10 qira regarded as authentic, 7 mutawatir and 3 mashhur, all read in this verse with a kasra on the ta, with the exception of Azam, who reads with a father on the ta. The reading of al-Hasan, a shad recitation, is also Khātam. The recitation that has become prevalent in most of the world today is Hafs and Azam, that is, the qira'ah of Azam in the riwayah of his student Hafs. The reading of 33 to 40 according to Hafs and Azam is as follows: Ma kana Muhammadun aba ahadan min rijalikum walakin rasulallahi wa khatama an-Nabiyyin wa kana lahu bikulli shay'in alima. Quranic use of the root khtm. The nouns Khātam and Khātam are derived from the root khtm. Words based on this root occur in the Quran 8 times, 5 times as the form I verb khatama, once as the noun Khātam or Khatam according to the qira'ah of Azam, once as the noun Khātam or Khatam according to the qira'ah of al-Kisri, once as the passive participle maktam. Hadith. Keystone metaphor. In a well-known hadith reported by Abu Hurairah, Jabir ibn Abdullah, Ubay ibn Ka'b, and Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, and recorded by al-Bukhari, Muslim, at-Tirmidhi, Ahmad, an-Nasa'i, and others, Muhammad compared the relationship between himself and the previous prophets to a building missing a single brick. In Sahih al-Bukhari it is reported by Abu Hurairah that Muhammad said, My similitude in comparison with the prophets before me is that of a man who has built a house nicely and beautifully, except for a place of one brick in a corner. The people go about it and wonder at its beauty, but say, would that this brick be put in its place. So I am that brick, and I am the seal of the prophets. This hadith is narrated with similar wording in Sahih Muslim, Musnad Ahmad, Sunan al-Kubra an-Nasa'i, and Sahih Ibn Hibban. In Mujam al-Awsat, at-Tabrani narrated a variant wording of the hadith with the last statement being, So I am that. I am the seal of the prophets. There is no prophet after me. Ibn Hibban also has a variant ending with, I was the place of that brick, with me concluded the messengers. In Sahih Muslim and Musnad Ahmad the hadith is also reported by Jabir ibn Abdullah, with the last statement being, So I am the place of the brick. I have come and concluded the prophets. Abu Dawud at-Tayalisi in his Musnad has from Jabir, So I am the place of that brick, with me concluded the prophets. Other hadith. In another hadith, Muhammad prophesied the appearance of a number of false prophets before the Day of Judgment, while asserting his status as the seal of the prophets. It is reported by Thawban ibn Bajdad that Muhammad said, The hour will not be established until tribes of my ummah unite with the idolaters, and until they worship idols. And in my ummah there will be 30 liars, each of whom will claim to be a prophet. I am the seal of the prophets. There is no prophet after me. Hudhayfah ibn al-Yaman reports that Muhammad said, "In my ummah there will 27 liars and dajjals, among whom are 4 women. I am the seal of the prophets. There is no prophet after me." Classical lexicons. According to the authoritative dictionary Lisan al-Arab of Ibn Mansur, the Khātam of a group of people, the Khātam of them, or the Khātam of them, is the last of them, according to al-Layani. And Muhammad is Khātam of the prophets. At Tadab, Khātam and Khātam are among the names of the prophet. And in the Qur'an, Muhammad is not the father of any of your men, but he is the messenger of Allah and Khātam of the prophets, that is, the last of them. And it was also recited as Khātam. And the saying of al-Hajjaj, "Blessed are the prophets," is this Khātam, is based on the well-known recitation with the Kasra, and also among his names is al-Haqib, and its meaning is last of the prophets. According to Taj al-Aras of al-Zabadi, Khātam, the last of a people, like Khātam. And with this definition is the saying in the Qur'an, Khātam of the prophets, that is, the last of them. Further, and among the names of the prophet are Khātam and Khātam, and he is the one who sealed prophethood by his coming. Traditional interpretation. The title is generally regarded by Muslims as meaning that Muhammad is the last in the series of prophets beginning with Adam. The belief that a new prophet cannot arise after Muhammad is shared by both Sunni and Shia Muslims. Some of the most prominent historical Sunni texts on creed explicitly mention the doctrine of finality of prophethood. For example, in al-Aqidah at-Tahawiyya it is asserted that every claim to the prophetic office after his is a delusion and a wandering desire. Quote, in another popular work, al-Aqidah an-Nasiriyya, it is stated, "The first of the prophets is Adam and the last is Muhammad." Academic views. Hartwig Hirschfeld doubted the authenticity of the verse 33-40 and claimed it to be of late origin. Johann Friedman states that Hirschfeld's arguments that the title Khātam an-Nabiyyin is unusual, that it only appears once in the Qur'an, that the word Khātam is not Arabic, do not seem valid arguments against the authenticity of the verse. Franz Boole accepted the traditional meaning of last prophet. Joseph Horowitz suggested 2 possible interpretations of Khātam an-Nabiyyin, the last prophet of the one who confirms the authenticity of the previous prophets. Heinrich Speer agreed with Horowitz. According to Alfred T. Welch, the traditional Muslim belief that Muhammad is last and greatest of the prophets is most likely based on a later interpretation of 33-40. The first modern academic to have studied in detail the history of the doctrine of finality of prophethood is Johann Friedman. In his seminal article, Finality of Prophethood in Sunni Islam, he concluded that although the notion of finality of prophethood eventually acquired an undisputed and central place in the religious thought of Islam, it was contested during the 1st century AH. He states, while it is true that the phrase Khātam an-Nabiyyin is generally interpreted as meaning the last prophet, the exegetical tradition and other branches of classical Arabic literature preserved material which indicates that this now generally received understanding of the Quranic phrase is not the only possible one and had not necessarily been the earliest. Due to this, Friedman states that the meaning of Khātam an-Nabiyyin in its original Quranic context is still in doubt. Wilfred Madelung takes Friedman's findings into consideration in observing that the original Quranic meaning of the term is not entirely certain. However, in a more recent paper he states, most Muslims at the time no doubt understood it to mean that he was to be the last prophet and Islam was the final religion, as Muslims have commonly understood it ever since. Carl W. Ernst considers the phrase to mean that Muhammad's imprint on history is as final as a wax seal on a letter. David Powers, also making use of Friedman's research, believes that the early Muslim community was divided over the meaning of the expression, with some understanding it to mean he fulfilled or confirmed the earlier Christian and Jewish revelations, while others understood it as signifying that Muhammad brought the office of prophethood to a close. He suggests that the Quranic text underwent a series of secondary omissions and additions which were designed to adapt the text to the dogma of finality of prophethood, and that the idea of finality only became the prevailing interpretation by the end of the 1st century or 7th century. In a review of Powers' book, Gerald Horting goes further, suggesting that the development of the doctrine was not complete before the 3rd century or 9th century. Madelung comments that Powers' argument that verses 36 to 40 are a later addition dating from the generation after Muhammad's death is hardly sustainable. Uri Rubin holds that the finality of prophethood is a Quranic idea, not a post-Quranic one, and that the expression Khātam an-Nabiyyin implies both finality of prophethood and confirmation. In response to Powers and other modern scholars skeptical of the early origin of the doctrine, Rubin concludes from his study that, at least as far as Surah 33 is concerned, the consonantal structure of the Quranic text has not been tampered with, and that the idea of finality of prophethood is well represented in the text, as well as in the earliest available extra-Quranic materials. Rubin re-examines the early extra-Quranic texts cited by Friedman and other modern scholars, and concludes that rather than indicating that the notion of finality of prophethood is late, the texts confirmed the early origin of the belief. He concludes that there is no compelling reason to assume that the Muslims of the first Islamic century originally understood the Quranic Khātam, an-Nabiyyin in the sense of confirmation alone, without that of finality. Ahmadiyya Interpretation. The Ahmadiyya Muslim community, while accepting Muhammad as the seal of the prophets and the last prophet to have brought a complete and comprehensive universal law for humanity, believe that prophethood subordinate to Muhammad is still open. Muhammad is believed to have brought prophethood to perfection and was the last law-bearing prophet, the apex of man's spiritual evolution. New prophets can come, but they must be subordinate to Muhammad and cannot exceed him in excellence nor alter his teaching or bring any new law or religion. The Ahmadiyya community believes Mirza Ghulam Ahmad to be the promised Messiah and Mahdi, who claimed a certain kind of prophethood but never claimed to have brought any new divine laws or changed the law of Muhammad, but to have been divinely appointed to revive and universally establish the law religion of Muhammad. The Ahmadiyya community draws upon various opinions of Islamic scholars throughout the history of Islam to show the possibility of non-law-bearing prophethood within Islam. Baha'i view. The Baha'i faith regards Muhammad as a manifestation of God and as the seal of the prophets, but does not interpret this term as meaning that no further messengers from God are possible. In particular, Baha'is regard the end-times prophecies of Islam as being symbolic, and see the Bab and Baha'u'llah as symbolically fulfilling these prophetic expectations. The latter of these is the founder of the Baha'i religion, which considers Islamic law to have been superseded by its own. Muhammad is seen as ending the Adamic cycle, also known as the Prophetic Cycle, which is stated to have begun approximately 6,000 years ago, and the Bab and Baha'u'llah as starting the Baha'i cycle, or cycle of fulfillment, which will last at least 500,000 years with numerous manifestations of God appearing throughout the time.
Baha'u'llah gave the title King of the Messengers to the Bab, and the Sender of the Messengers to himself. In the Kitab al-Quran, he uses the Islamic concept of the oneness of the prophets to show that the term Seal of the Prophets does not apply to Muhammad only, but to all the prophets. He also makes a direct link between Quran 33-40 about the Seal of the Prophets and 33-44 about the promise of the attainment of the divine presence on the day of resurrection, which he interprets as the meeting with the manifestation of God. The day of resurrection is interpreted as the day of the advent of the Qa'im Ahmadi. These interpretive and legal differences have caused the Baha'is to be seen as heretics and apostates by many Muslims, which has led to the persecution in various countries. Controversies. The concept of the finality of prophethood of Muhammad has caused controversy in recent times. The Ahmadiyya Muslim community hold Mirza Ghulam Ahmad to be a prophet, subordinate to Muhammad in accordance with Islamic prophecies. Ahmad founded the movement in Qadir, India in 1889 and claimed to be the promised Messiah and Mahdi. His claims resulted in a violent reaction among many Muslims of the Indian subcontinent. Salafi and Sunni scholars vehemently opposed him, and in subsequent years a movement opposed to Ahmadiyya beliefs was founded. This movement is subject to violence and abuse in many Muslim countries, is still very active in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh and other countries where Ahmadiyya adherents are present.